Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Monday, April 28th, 2017.
Commissioner Rivas, Repenning, James, Davison has sent to our President James, we have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning, Tim Tyson, Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning, Ruben Flamenco, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning, Khalil Garrios, Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning, Neil Drucker, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, Hannah Choi, Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Lori Rittenberg, City Attorney.
Dr. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we do not have any speaker cards under general public comment. No speakers under the Neighborhood Council commentary section. We did receive speaker cards on items number 2 and 8 for today's agenda.
All right, then we'll close general public comment as well as the Neighborhood Council category of commentary. Is there a second to my motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the meeting of Monday, April 10th, 2017 by Commissioner Repenning? Any objection? Without objection, we will approve those meeting minutes. Agenda item number 8, Council District 14, street closure, Ramirez Street between Center Street and Keller Street. Recommending that the board first find that the Board of Public Works has reviewed and considered the information in the California Environmental Quality Act Notice of Exemption dated March 31, 2017, that's transmittal number 1, related to the requested street closure. Number 2, find that the requested street closure is categorically exempt under the state CEQA guidelines, section 15301C, as well as under the City of Los Angeles CEQA guidelines, Article 3. Sorry, I'm just laughing. I probably shocked everyone when I told you that it was Monday morning this morning when I announced the meeting. Somebody just texted me and said, hey, you just said it's Monday. Today is Friday, everybody, all right? So your weekend is still ahead of you. All right. Anyway, Class 1, and thank you, Shelley, for the note. Class 1, Category 3, because it involves the minor alteration of an existing roadway and public sidewalk with negligible expansion of use. None of the limitations set forth in the state CEQA guidelines 15300.2 apply. Number 3, specify that the Metro Transit Division of the Bureau of Engineering, located at 1149 South Broadway Street, and that the board, located at 200 North Spring Street, and other relevant City of Los Angeles departments, are custodians of the documents or other material which constitute the record of the proceedings upon which the board's decision is based. And fourth, approve the request to temporarily close Ramirez Street between Center Street and Keller Street for 2 consecutive months, starting today, Friday, April 28th, 2017 at 5 p.m. and ending Wednesday, June 28th, 2017 at 11:59 p.m., subject to the conditions identified within the attached report. Mr. Tran from the Bureau of Engineering, we'll start with you. The other 2 cards I have are both from Metro, so we'll start with Mr. Tran.
Good morning. I'm Curtis Tran. I'm with Bureau of Engineering, Metro Transit Division. I'm here to request the board to temporary grant MTA and its contractor to have, like Mr. President said, 2 months of temporary street foreclosure on Ramirez Street between Center Street and Keller Street to construct a new Pasora Plaza busway station. This project will be involving a pedestrian bridge, directly a new pedestrian bridge be constructed from the Pasora Transit Plaza into the new El Monte busway, called Pasora Plaza busway station. It's an elevated on the El Monte busway. It's a widening of a bridge in a plain English term that will provide a more convenient and time-saving for passengers who are using the Silver Line going east. Right now, when passengers arrive at Union Station, they have to go through Alameda and crossing the HOV lane at Alameda, and it's very inconvenient. So right now, this busway will absolutely, the new station will absolutely save time and more convenient for service and so on. The contractor and MTA has completed all the major plan as required, and if they have obtained permit as required. The Bureau, in conjunction with MTA as well, we have did a CEQA review, and this project has been CEQA have been finding that they are category exempt with minimal significant impact to the environment. With that, in addition, LA DOT have approved a worksite traffic control plan. The police department have given them a noise variance with the extension to July 21 of this year. And construction is going to be ending on June 28. So 2 months of temporary street closure. So with that, if you have any questions for me, and I also have Metro staff and also the contractor as well as DOT staff in the audience if you have any questions for them as well.
Right, Mr. Tran, just to confirm for the record, that the Bureau of Engineering has everything that you need from the various other agencies that Metro's obtained through the Department of Transportation and otherwise, as well as the various permit review boards, et cetera?
Yes. These transit and transportation projects have very aggressive schedule, design and constructed. They're design build. So a lot of time, the plans and permit, we give them just in time for the full closure date. So at this time, I'm happy to report that LADOT have expedited, and also the police department expedited the extension noise variance. So we have all the permit, all the plan as needed for this closure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Tran before we go to Metro? All right, thank you, sir. We have...
if you don't mind, I would like to hand out the
oh, sure.
extension of the noise variance. Yeah, Commissioner, you have a question for me?
Oh, thank you. This is for the variance. So Anna Noyola or Kofi Berrier, I may not have pronounced one or both of those names very well. Go ahead.
Good morning, board members. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
My name is Ana Noyola. I'm a senior third-party administrator working with Metro. I am here to provide you a summary of our outreach efforts and to communicate to you and the public that Metro has been working on a weekly basis with the agencies that my colleague Curtis mentioned earlier, in particular DOT and BOE. We have not been working, in a silo. It's been a collaborative effort. We have done extensive coordination with the tenants of the Pipertech building, with our own staff Metro, which are may be impacted by the closure of Ramirez Street. We've also done extensive coordination with Danny's Restaurant, municipal operators, LX Flyaway, shuttles and their services, LADOT Dash. These outreach efforts include periodic updates and participation in our weekly construction meetings, direct communication in person via email and telephone with Pipertech and Metrolink. We coordinated all public outreach, including notice of construction activities and anticipated impacts to the community taking place in the right-of-way on the plaza. We also have ensured that with them, each one of these stakeholders, that all these construction activities, related schedules, and potential impacts are communicated to them in a timely manner. These efforts that I have summarized for you were conducted in close coordination with DOT under the leadership of Jesus Serrano and BOE under the leadership of Curtis Tran. The Metro team will continue to close workly on a weekly basis with BOE and DOT to address any concerns that we have that are brought up to our team by the impacted stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from Ms. Noyola? Commissioner Penning?
I see that we're losing a tree, and it says something here about it will be replaced at 2 to 1 at a suitable location as determined by the UFD.
I'm sorry, what, can you?
You're going to replace the tree that you're taking out
Yes,
too?
yes.
Okay. Do we know where yet?
For that, I think that question will be best. I actually don't have the plan set, but we've done coordination with the Bureau of Street Services, and it probably be along the same corridor where the tree was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Metro will provide the watering, I would assume.
I don't have information on that. I don't know if my colleague. Okay. Were there any additional questions for me?
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Tran on Commissioner Penning's question.
Yeah, good question. I do have the permit here, and I would like to pass out. Yes, Commissioner, like you said, that will be replaced 2 to 1, and they are responsible until establishment based on this permit.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyson. You want to add anything on that?
No.
Only because I saw your name on the document here.
I believe it to be 3 to 5 years or till established, so 3 years for sure, somewhere in between 3 and 5 years for the watering of the trees for Metro.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, we can go to Kofi Barrier. How did I do with your last name, sir?
Baye. Good.
Okay, I got close. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good morning, board members. My name is Kofi Baye. I'm a senior director with Metro, and I'm directly responsible for the job as a resident engineer here in support of the proposal and to answer any questions you may have about the proposal.
Great, thank you, sir. Commissioner Jacinto?
Thank you, President James. Kofi, thank you. Jesus, on the traffic plan and the coordination, I think is really important. Can you talk a little bit about the biggest impact happens with Piper Tech, sir, right? And you guys did a great job about being able to mitigate that. Can you share a little bit of information, sir?
Good morning, board. Jesus Serrano with LADOT's Metro programs. Yes, primarily this closure of Ramirez between Center Street and Keller will impact the Piper Tech facility. As Ms. Noyola had mentioned previously, one of the reasons we're very comfortable with this closure is that the proper public outreach has been done in coordination with the Piper Tech facility. One of those efforts that's being taken is to possibly find additional access and ingress points to the facility itself that usually are closed. One of those driveways is off of Lion Street, just south of Cesar Chavez, that may be open to help out with circulation. The actual driveway that is on Ramirez Street, according to the traffic control plans, will be maintained accessible at all times. So we think that will definitely minimize the impact. Additionally, the closure of Ramirez will basically close off Keller Street between Ramirez and the dead end to the north. Primarily the parking along that street will be mitigated. The loss of parking will be mitigated by provision of some parking on the Division 13 facility immediately adjacent to the Piper Tech facility across the street on Cesar Chavez. So other than that, there will be some possible detour routes for some traffic to the Metrolink driveway on Keller Street through the Division 13 facility as well. It seems like the success of this closure largely is based on the outreach and the coordination efforts. And again, we believe that's been properly done. We've actually been looking at this closure for months now. We went back and forth and looked at several options. So we think there's a good plan in place.
Very good. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you very much.
Anything further? Okay. Is there a motion on agenda item number 8 by Commissioner Jacinto? I'll second it. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 8. Any issues sending number 8 forthwith? We will send number 8 forthwith. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 9, authority for expenditure. Kuamoto Associates approve and execute an authority for expenditure in the amount of $24,750 to provide the Japanese Garden Mayor's Citizens Advisory Committee located at Donald C. Tillman Water Reclamation Plant City of Los Angeles, a strategic plan and blueprint for sustainability, agreement to span from April 26, 2017 to October 25, 2017, and authorize myself or two board members to execute a letter of agreement between Kumamoto Associates in the City of Los Angeles. Mr. Green on number 9.
Mr. President, I don't see Mr. Green in the audience. If you'd like, we can hold the item until the end of the meeting. If he's not here, we can continue it for 1 week.
Okay, let's go to number 3, contract amendment, Hollywood Beautification Team, recommending that the board authorize the Office of the Community Beautification to amend an existing contract with the Hollywood Beautification Team in the amount of $7,552 for supplemental community beautification efforts, including the purchase and planting of Platanus acerifolia trees in the 4th Council District. Paul Roch.
Good morning, Paul Roch, Director of the Office of Community Beautification, requesting board approval to execute a contract amendment with Hollywood Beautification Team based upon a council motion which provided funding from the Council District for street furniture revenue account for the purchase and planting of 24 trees in the community of Hancock Park, which would be spearheaded by the Hollywood Beautification Team. Maybe Mr. Tyson could provide more input, but the Platanus acerifolia trees, I believe, are commonly known as American sycamore. Is that correct?
They're known as the London plane. Are these Rasmosa?
That would have been a whole lot easier for me to say here.
Are these Rasmosa? Yeah. Acerifolia, no, these are London plane trees. These were the trees that
we dealt with in Hancock Park.
The Bureau was gathering the trees at 24-inch box size to plant, and they jumped the gun, and they got 15-gallon size trees and planted them before I could get the trees to them. So, unfortunately, it was a lack of communication, but the trees were already planted, and they're on their way to growing.
All right. Those are the London planes that were the dead London planes that the Bureau took out that we had the pleasure of meeting with the community with within a few days of that?
Absolutely. That was a pleasurable meeting.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it was actually.
It went well.
It was actually all things considered. So.
Yeah, and these are the kind of things that have to be considered in the near future for a lot of areas where these trees are subsequently in a demise condition. And before they actually fall and hurt someone or something like that, we need to go in and do what's the right thing and remove trees and replant trees for the future.
Absolutely, and a wind event like today reminds us of that.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Any questions on agenda item number 3? Without questions on number 3, I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 3, seconded by Commissioners Jacinto and Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 4, Council District 10, Contract Amendment, Los Angeles Conservation Corps, recommending that the board authorize the Office of Community Beautification to amend an existing contract amendment with the Los Angeles Conservation Corps in the amount of $39,550 to provide supplemental community beautification services, including the coordination of the LaSalle Gateway Monument Project in the 10th Council District. Mr. Roch on number 4.
Paul Roch, Director of the Office of Community Beautification. This project goes back originally about 5 years when our office provided community beautification grants. And this particular community group had applied for and received funding from a grant, and they've been going through the process of obtaining city review and permit to transform a barren concrete median island located in the community of the West Adams Heights neighborhood at the intersection of LaSalle and Washington Boulevard. They basically are planning to transform this median island, which currently just has an asphalt cap on it, by putting in some trees, landscaping, decorative rocks, and a community identification sign identifying it as part of the West Adams Heights neighborhood. The transfer of funds from the office of Councilmember Wesson does provide the additional funding that the community group needed in order to complete the project, and so they will now be able to move ahead with the funds they got through the OCB grant and from the office of CD10.
Thank you, Mr. Roch. Any questions on number 4? No questions on number 4. I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 4. Is there a second on number 4 by Commissioner Repenning? Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 4. Any issue sending number 4 forthwith? We'll send number 4 forthwith.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, on item number 3, would your board like to consider moving that item forthwith as well? I just noticed that 3 was just approved as adopted without moving it forward.
I don't see any reason to not move number 3 forthwith. Does anybody else?
If there's no objections, we will note that for the record.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That would go as well. I must have been very excited to get to the London plane trees. I forgot. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 5, Bureau of Engineering and Bureau of Contract Administration. Request for authority to issue a request for qualifications, emergency on-call list for sewer and storm drain repairs, recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to advertise and issue the request for qualifications for the purpose of establishing 2 on-call rotating lists of contractors for emergency repair work for the city's sewer and storm drains. Secondly, authorize the staff from the Department of Public Works to evaluate and pre-qualify the respondents based on the requirements and procedures set forth in the RFQ. And third, direct the city engineer to submit the proposed on-call contractor list to the Board of Public Works for adoption with recommendations to execute a contract with each of the selected contractors. John Delcaste? Delcaste. We tried that recently too, and I probably missed it.
I was here last week.
Okay, well, John Delcaste. I'll get it next week. All right.
Well, it's a very unique last name, actually the only one in the world probably, so you wouldn't guess
welcome,
what
sir.
nationality it is.
All right.
It's my dad's creation, basically.
I did get the pronunciation of your first name right.
My first name, that's an easy one. Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Okay, I'm with the Bureau of Engineering, and I'm the emergency sewer repair manager. Our current emergency sewer repair contract will expire on November 14, 2017. And for qualification for the new contract, we have contractors' qualifications are based on their work experience, technical capability, financial stability, ability to contract with the city, review of the contractor's performance history with the city and other public agencies. Our current contract is very similar to the new contract. However, as we learn lessons from the previous contracts, we implement those changes for new contracts. For this new contract, we have some major changes. I give you a couple of them, and one of them would be the number of work rejection currently is 3, and we are increasing that to 5. And now we have created a new, for large-scale sewer emergency, we have created category 1, and the engineer, when they get a call, for example, when we have Laurel Canyon or Mission that are large projects, we have created categories, category 1, we call it, the engineer can say, this is category 1, so what they are going to do, basically the work would include the deployment of heavy equipment, setting up large-scale bypass system, substantial traffic control, 24/7 construction operation. And we would require increase the minimum bonding capacity for those projects. And category 1, actually the contractor has a say in accepting the job or not without having any penalty. And then going to local business, for this contract, The prime contractors that are considered local business enterprise will be granted an additional 8 points. And we have obtained business inclusion program waiver from the Mayor's Office of Economic Development.
Great, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jacinto, we'll start with you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the report. I think it's prudent that we go from 3 to 5, and increase our list as well as a category 1.
Yes.
because of-
Commissioner Jacinto, can you
Sorry.
hold 1 second? Sir, could we find out who was here visiting us before we Sorry, I thought you guys might stay a little bit longer and we might finish the item and then I would turn to you, but oh, well, great. Well, welcome, and welcome to everyone who's here today. We're the Department of Public Works. We have 5 bureaus that make up the department: the Bureau of Sanitation and the Bureau of Street Services, the Bureau of Engineering, Contract Administration, and Street Lighting. And we also have the Petroleum Administration offices within our board, as well as Community Beautification. And the Film and Television Office too. So, in many ways, we are the infrastructure department, of course, in the city of Los Angeles. And much of what we do transparently, which is the board meeting that you're seeing right now. We have these meetings every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 10 a.m. here in these amazing hearing room chambers. So thank you all for visiting City Hall, and please take the time on your own to learn more about the Department of Public Works. And of course, if any part of our department interests you, we would love to hear from you. All right, thank you. All right, yeah, enjoy your day. Commissioner Jacinto?
Thank you, President James. John, I was the category 1 portion that for big projects, I think that's prudent as well, because we've seen lately that the NOS, that major projects may continue.
Correct.
And I think that category is very strategic to be able to whittle down and have the capacity to handle that. We don't want to get on a job and then the contractor cannot provide the 24/7 bypass, the large machinery. So I support this wholeheartedly.
Exactly. I think that's a major change, actually.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacinto. Commissioner Repenning?
Your current contracts expire in November.
No, yes.
Are you going to be able to put this new list in place by then?
Yes, if everything goes through, like you approve it today and then we move on, we are on a schedule.
Okay, seems like a short turnaround, but thank you.
It does. We're rooting for you on that.
Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you. And Neil Drucker tells me yes. Okay, excellent. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Anything further? Is there a motion on agenda item number 5 by Commissioner Jacinto, seconded by Commissioner Repenning? Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 5. Can we send number 5 forthwith? We will send number 5 forthwith. Thank you all. Agenda item number 2. Council District 14 requested tree removal at 1212 South Flower Street, recommending that the board first, and of course I have some environmental requirements for notice that I need to read into the record, so bear with me. Recommending that the board first certify that the board has reviewed and considered the information in the addendum to the mitigated negative declaration for the project at 1212 South Flower Street and find the information contained therein appropriately addresses the requested tree removals. Secondly, I find that the project will not have a significant environmental effect under the above described addendum to the mitigated negative declaration. We'll call that the MND. As the imposition of the mitigation measures described in the MND and incorporated herein as project conditions, there is no substantial evidence the proposed project will have a significant effect on the environment pursuant to the city's environmental guidelines and is in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, that's CEQA. Third, find the project's conflict with any local policies or ordinances protecting biological resources, such as tree preservation policies or ordinances, is less than significant with the incorporation of mitigation measures that are described at 4-4 as contained in the MND. Number 4, adopt the addendum to the mitigated negative declaration. That's the MND. The Planning Department case number is there. Number 5, specify that the Bureau of Street Services, Urban Forestry Division, located at 1149 South Broadway, is custodian of the documents or other material that constitute the record of proceedings upon which the board's decision is based. And number 6, approve the request for a fee tree removal permit to remove 5 Indian laurel fig, those are ficus trees, 4 bottle brush trees, and 1 Hollywood juniper tree. Tree replacements are required as described in the board report. I think some of them are even 48-inch box trees. Mr. Tyson, we will start with you. We have a speaker on the item that we'll get to, but you will set us up and describe what we are doing.
Yes, sir. The On-I Contracting Company is developing a mixed-use development project located at 1212 South Flower Street. The project is bounded by South Flower to the west, 12th Street to the south, and South Hope Street to the east in the community of South Park. The development will consist of 2 high-rise residential apartment towers with associated support services such as parking, residential amenity facilities, storage room, bike storage, lobby circulation, and service space. Commercial, retail, and restaurant space will be located on the ground floors. The project's 2 towers will contain a total of 730 residential units and 7,873 square feet of retail space. A total of 732 parking spaces would be provided on 4 underground and 7 podium levels. Mr. Wayne Romanek, property owner representative, contacted the Bureau of Street Services requesting the project site be inspected to determine the relationship between the proposed construction and improvements and the adjacent street trees. A Bureau arborist inspected the subject location on March 1st, 2017 to determine the project's impact to the existing street trees. The inspection revealed 5 Indian laurel fig ficus microcarpa trees growing on the Hope Street side and 4 weeping bottlebrush calistrium citrinus trees and 1 Hollywood juniper, Juniperus chinesis tortuoso, which is a twisting juniper, on the west 12th Street side. The trees are in fair health, measuring 4 to 24 inches in diameter by 10 to 45 feet in height, planted in 4-foot tree wells, and are also located in a 5-foot parkway. The roots and root crowns of the 5 Indian laurel fig trees have not significantly affected most of the public sidewalk due to the fact they were planted directly adjacent to the curb, and the root crowns and have the root crowns have grown and girdled over the curb. They were not planted in the center of the parkway.
Sorry, Mr. Tyson, you're saying they have adversely affected the sidewalk?
Not the sidewalk, but they're adversely affecting the curb and gutter.
Oh, the curb and gutter.
Yes, in the photos you'll see.
Because of where they were planted?
Yes. They were not centrally located in the parkway when they were planted many years ago, and now they're crushing down on the curb and gutter.
Got it. Go ahead.
The roots and root crowns of the 5 Indian laurel fig trees have not significantly affected most of the public sidewalk, however, were planted directly adjacent to the concrete curb, and their root crowns have grown and girdled over the curb. The root pruning required for required sidewalk, curb, and gutter repair would significantly affect the structural integrity of these trees. The 4 bottlebrush and 1 Hollywood juniper trees are under 15 feet in height and are not considered to be prime specimen trees. All trees are growing along the streets and sidewalks targeted for closure for material staging areas. The developer will need to utilize the street and sidewalk space for multiple construction activities, including staging for large excavators, dump trucks, and logistical support vehicles. Additionally, project requires clear access for loading, unloading, and hoisting of supplies and material via a large overhead crane. The removed trees shall be replaced with a species that provides shade in addition to other aesthetic environmental benefits. And if you look at the logistics plan that you're provided in your package, you can see the staging points of the cranes. And there's actually the large towers being placed over here on Hope Street So you have cranes on both streets. And so what's recommended for replanting is not 24-inch box size trees. In fact, the trees that will be planted in place of the bottle brush trees will almost be the same size as they are now.
Are those the 48-inch box?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
going to read that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The applicant should plant a minimum of 11 48-inch box size London Plane, Columbia, Platanus, Hispanica trees on the 12th Street and Hope Street sides, and 9 36-inch box Golden Medallion trees on the Flower Street side to replace the trees on a 2-to-1 basis.
Is that a better species for the area compared to what you described in the board report?
Yes.
Okay, because I know that the council office was pleased about the size and species that would be replacing it.
Correct.
All right, go ahead.
Nate Hayward, 14th Council District, was informed of the tree removal request on March 2nd, 2017. The council office will inform us if there was any persons or opportunity to be heard at the Board of Public Works, which there is one here today. Notice of the proposed tree removals were physically posted on the subject trees March 6, 2017. Proposed tree removals were included on the Bureau of Street Services tree removal notification system, and the Community Forest Advisory Committee was notified of the pending removals. So the Bureau is here today to ask for the permit to be approved by the board.
And the five, is it 5 ficus?
Yes.
Okay, because I know I have it all in front of me, but okay, we see a lot of these.
It's-
5 ficus.
yes.
Anything unique, typical ficus situation, Mr. Tyson, where they are just intrusive and abusive of the public right-of-way and the sidewalks?
Well, if
Granted, their benefit that we know they have with shade and such?
these trees are actually growing on top of the curb.
Oh.
And the curb is to be fixed. So there's no way you can root prune those trees. You'll be cutting right into the base of the tree. So that's why these are recommended for removal,
You can't have that dangerous situation there.
as well as all the placement of all the other things like that. So the fact that they're fixing the curb and the gutter makes it, well, they won't be there for the other things that are going to be in the way of it too.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Tyson before we'll start with Commissioner Cinto?
Thank you. Tim, I just had a comment on the evolution of the board reports for tree removals over the course of time. I think they've just got improved. There's more detail. It's clear, the site plans, the labeling of the trees. I appreciate that in terms of being able to make a determination on tough. We're losing a lot of canopy here with the ficus, right? But the rationale and the documents are absolutely outstanding. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyson. We may have some more questions for you depending on what we hear in the public comment.
Okay.
Steve Pompili.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a small business owner in the South Park District, directly across the street from this construction site. And my business is an event venue, so we do a lot of events in collaboration with the convention center, corporate events. And these, I'm only talking about the 5, or I'm only against the removal of the 5. It says 5 here, but there's actually only 4 because 1 was already removed, and I have video of that. But those trees are 50 feet tall. My business is located on the 4th floor of that building.
And you mean that you're talking about the ficus, sir?
The huge ficus trees.
Okay, go
correct.
ahead.
Yeah, and they are absolutely unique in trees. I know that those they're 45 feet tall, so being that they can provide shade to me and I'm on the 4th floor is not going to be anytime soon with any tree that's replaced there. It's gonna cause me a great deal of retrofitting the building, renovations as far as air conditioning goes. It's a 1929 building. Yeah, so I'm just here asking that you take that into consideration. Those trees are, that particular stretch of sidewalk is the only sidewalk that is actually intact on Hope Street. So it's like, and as far as the overgrowth on the curb is so minimal as for what we're taking down, I don't see the benefit there. As far as safety is concerned, there's, in my opinion, no risk at all. Yeah, so one of these trees that was up for mark today has already been removed, and I just felt like it was unfortunate. That's why I took the video, because they're such large trees, and there's a lot of construction going on in South Park, and it seems like all these ficuses are disappearing. And the construction on the backside on Grand, the trees that they're replacing them with are, I don't even know if you can consider them trees. I mean, they're branches. So it's unfortunate to South Park. And yeah, I'd just like to have you consider that they're 45 feet tall. You know, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Papilli, and thank you for taking the time to come in this morning. Mr. Tyson? Mr. Papilli's point on the trees, he's on an upper story and he even gets shade from these ficus trees. We see this regularly. We had a removal recently, I think it was on Pico near a doctor's office, where you have these, they are spectacular. I mean, I think I made a quip once that made it into the paper about this tree has its own zip code. You know, because they're huge, and there's great environmental benefit. But we also have, and never mind the beautification of it, never mind the beauty of it, which is also vast in many instances. But we're faced with a federal lawsuit in our sidewalk repair, but that, for the sidewalk repair plan. But regardless of the scope of the work that's part of the sidewalk repair plan, even if it's not, and let's assume for sake of argument that this is not, when we go in and do this work, when we begin to repair these sidewalks to make them ADA compliant, we have to make them ADA compliant. Are we given a choice in a circumstance like this? Is there any way, and my question is, regarding Mr. Pompili's point on the condition of the curb and gutter that also has to meet standards, is there any way to save any of these trees? And are the trees that he's only talking about the ficus trees, not the other trees that have to be removed for the various staging activities? Do the ficus trees need to be removed for staging activities as well?
Yes.
Or they too.
Yes, it's all about the staging as well as the curb. In
Okay.
other words, the cranes, they'll be in the way of the cranes, they'll be in the way for the staging of the equipment, all these different factors. And you can look at the photos that were provided. I know they don't have photos, but you can see where these ficus trees have big, large wounds at the bottom from being struck by vehicles.
Now, the
They're
photos
growing
are-
right on the curbs, and they were planted, you could see in the one photo where they were planted all the way over to the one side of the parkway. So when they bring these,
Were they even if this is a word, were they misplanted then?
you know, I would have to say yes, unless they've changed something since the time they were planted, which could have happened. They could have made the parkway even smaller 30 years ago. I don't know. But normally you plant the trees in the dead center of the parkway. If you see, the meters are right there too. So yes, they're beautiful trees, and you look at the last photo that's down by the driveway. This one is actually buckling up the driveway apron. It's right next to a street light in the very last photo. You know, I try to save trees whenever I can when I go out and personally look at things, and when we look at these kind of things, I actually look at that as well. I love trees. I like to see them stay if we can. We just saved 2 ficus trees over in the Westwood area, but they were not of this caliber. They were not this size. They have another 20 years or 30 years to get to this
Before
size.
they get to that point.
Yes, so they were sustainable.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Repenning?
Tim, any information about what the resident is saying about one of the trees already being removed?
I have to check into that. I'm not sure if one of the guys told me about one of the trees being removed prior to this report or not.
Okay, I would like us to look into that, because that to me is very serious. I do not want to create a sense among the development community that, you know, we're going to rubber stamp their removal permit and that they can go ahead and start the work.
I have to check, but this might have been where they went to remove one of the trees and we went out and said, no, you can't remove anymore. We have to go to board, all those things.
Okay, let's
I
check
have
on
to
that.
check.
And then I also have a question. Looking at the size of the project, I assume there must be other on-site tree requirements that I'm guessing may not be able to be met. You may not have that information, but...
Yeah, I didn't get a tree report on the inside of the property. That would have been city planning that would have got that tree report for other significant trees. If there's protected trees and other significant trees, then we get a tree report, we do all the inspecting, and then we send a report to city planning verifying that those trees do exist on the property inside it. But we didn't get one for this.
Okay.
Mr. Tyson, regarding the MND, it appropriately describes the trees that are sought for removal now, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And to Commissioner Repenning's point on the early removal of a tree, possibly illegal removal of a tree as described by Mr. Pompili, an additional aspect of that is confirming communications that may have happened between the Urban Forestry Division or even the Department of City Planning and the developer or their contractor, because we need to we need to get a whole record there on what may have been communicated one way or the other.
I'll report.
Because I know what your standards are in communicating with these developers, which would lend me to believe that it was perhaps illegally done. But we need to know what the communications are. So we would like that, and then we can share. Mr. Pompili has left his telephone number here on his speaker card, so I'll hand that to Mr. Campos, and we'll have a record of that when we get the information back from you. Commissioner, and we may want to let the city attorney's office know about it as well. Commissioner Davis?
I just wanted to, Mr. Tyson, get some confirmation. It seems as if the constituent was asking if, in fact, this one specific tree could be saved in the project. And I don't know specifically what that tree is. Maybe you do know what that tree is that is providing the shade for his window. So in terms of that request, is it possible, did you ever answer that question, is it possible that that particular tree could be given some consideration given all of the things that have occurred on this particular case?
Actually, I would have to say no. I need to go out and see it myself.
So will you go out and do that?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
I can meet with the constituent and go out and see the tree and report back.
Great. Thank you.
Commissioner Cinto?
Thank you. Thank you for raising that, Commissioner Davis. And Tim, the replacement tree is 40-inch box size. Because we're losing so much canopy, do we give consideration for even larger than 48-inch? Would we be able to plant a larger tree, or is that absolutely?
That's about the largest tree we can get in there. They have to have, in other words, they have to plant the trees and then put in the sidewalk. They're so large of trees.
Mm-hmm. So that's our max.
It's big.
Okay. Thank you.
So, going back to this, Mr. Tyson, any other questions? Commissioner Repenning?
Do we know if there are already mature trees in front of Mr. Pompili's property?
You mean here?
Yeah, the trees he's concerned about are across the street, right?
You'd have to ask him.
There is one ficus tree on the corner of 12th and Hope that the way the sun sets over the convention center, it doesn't provide any shade, and that is also not as mature as the trees across the street. Another thing is that I'd like to say is that these trees are very resilient as far as pruning goes. So if they could prune as far as making it able to have the tree regenerate itself, would take less time than having to plant trees and waiting for them to grow. Another thing is there's so much space on 12th Street as far as staging and for the crane to go. It seems like it's their prerogative to place the crane in an area where it affects the removal of these trees.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you get the answer to your question?
I think so. Mr. Tyson? I guess what I'm wondering is I want to make sure that we're getting as much for the neighborhood as we can. If there's not a way to save the ficus due to staging, then I want to make sure that we're able to, I realize we are meeting the 2-to-1 ratio, but it's obviously a large development with a lot of residences. I'm sure that there's more that they're being asked to do by planning, and I'm wondering, especially if they've illegally cut something down, I'm just looking to see if there are more spaces to plant other trees so that, to try to mitigate from what's being lost in terms of the mature canopy that is going to impact the neighbors.
Well, if they did this tree unpermitted, then that'll be one of the things I would look into, them planting even more trees in the area. So, but that won't satisfy the immediate need of shade for the constituent.
Commissioner Cinto.
Yeah, thank you, President James. The question that was raised by Commissioner Repenning raises the issue of, are we ready to act on this item right now today? Because of the lack of information. One, you're going to go out, Tim, and you're going to take a look at Mr. Pompili's.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Cinto, I was working on dates with our executive officer, and you had said something that may be related to dates. What did you say?
Basically, are we ready to act on it, or do we need more time to
Well,
research this issue?
we got a couple of options. We can conditionally grant the permit, which I would typically move that we do, except for the allegation of the possible illegal removal of a tree. So for that, can you make that determination in enough time for you to come back 1 week from today, Mr. Tyson?
Absolutely.
Okay. That would be my recommendation, that rather than a conditional approval, that we continue the item 1 week from today, and Mr. Campos will re-agendize the item appropriately so, to give Mr. Tyson the opportunity to make a determination and to respond to what you can of the comments that were raised to begin with. The potential for saving any of these trees, and my suspicion is, and it's not completely a guess, that staging alternatives have been reviewed, and we are at the request that we are at now. You could confirm that, but the other information on the illegal tree removal would be helpful. Mr. Campos?
Yeah, so that the item would be continued to Friday, May the 4th.
Okay.
I actually met
Sorry,
with...
May the 5th.
I'm sorry. I actually met with the developer before this all started, and I went over all the staging. I was trying to save trees, and they just kept telling me there was no way, not with the cranes, this, that, and the other. So that's why, and in the documents provided from city planning, all the different things, they've got it all mapped out where the cranes will be sitting. And
well, and there are other elements of that plan that are approved in other places as well. And I also know where the council office stands on this, given the mitigation of the 48-inch box trees. As Commissioner Repenning pointed out, there may be some additional mitigation that is warranted depending upon the tree that Mr. Pompili has raised to our attention. We'll find out one way or the other. There also could have been a miscommunication, too, that resulted in the elimination of that tree that was on our end.
Could be.
That we don't want to hold them accountable for, because that wouldn't be fair. So you're telling me that in a week you could let us know that to be back here in a week from today?
Absolutely.
Okay, then agenda item number 2 will be continued to Friday, May 4th. Thank you, Mr. Tyson. Thank you, sir. Mr.
Friday,
Campos?
May 5th.
Oh, Friday is May 5th. Yes. I thought you said May 4th.
I did, then I corrected myself.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I didn't hear okay, so Friday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. All right. Thank you. So agenda item, let's see where we are now. Number 6, requested contract award, Department of Transportation, Bureau of Engineering, and Bureau of Contract Administration, Active Transportation Program, Hollywood Boulevard and Western Avenue, pedestrian improvements and safe routes to school, infrastructure improvements for Hollywood High School and Selma Avenue Elementary School. Recommending that the board first declare Sully Miller Contracting Company the first low bidder to be deemed non-responsive as discussed in the report. Second, declare Griffith Company the second low bidder to be deemed non-responsive as discussed in the report. Third, declare Comet Electric Incorporated the third low bidder, sounds like a bit of an auction, to be the lowest responsive responsible bidder and award them a contract for the project for $5,563,007.24 and authorize myself or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute the contract after approval as to form has been obtained from the city attorney, Carlos Rios and George Wang. Whoever would like to start, Mr. Rios perhaps, or Mr. Wang? It's up to the two of you.
Good morning, Carlos Rios with LA Department of Transportation. Just want to give you a little bit of background as to these particular projects. I think Commissioner kind of explained what our recommendations are. Essentially, the City of Los Angeles was successful in securing about $6.5 million in ATP or Active Transportation Program grants through the state of California. And these improvements include making Hollywood Boulevard a little more pedestrian friendly and also inclusive of curb extensions, new traffic signals, new crosswalks, pedestrian amenities such as additional bus benches, transit light security. We're also making improvements around Hollywood High School and Selma Elementary School. The overall objective of this program and this project is to essentially encourage a more active transportation use of the system, to encourage more folks to come out of their cars and walk and bike and offer them different options, making it safer, making it more pedestrian friendly. So what we have here is 2 projects that we bundled into one construction contract, and the recommendations articulate that we're making a recommendation to award to the 3rd low bidder. Linda of Bureau of Contract Administration can give you a little more insight as to why we're making that recommendation. Myself and George are here to answer any technical questions with regards to the specific project elements themselves.
Great, thank you, Mr. Rios. Ms. McGlinchey, you were not in my line of sight there, but here you are.
Good morning, Linda McGlinchey, Bureau of Contract Administration. As Mr. Rios said, we are recommending to the 3rd low bidder, Comet Electric. That is because this project had a DBE participation goal of 21%. The low bidder, Sully Miller, pledged a DBE commitment of 5.73%. Therefore, they did not meet the goal. We reviewed their good faith effort. We took the steps of submitting it to Caltrans because of the dollar value of this contract required that for them to review. Caltrans came back and said that based on their review, they did not believe that Sully Miller made an adequate DBE good faith effort.
So is it fair to say in that instance, Ms. McGlinchey, sorry to interrupt you, but just for the record, that you basically, on their behalf, and in an attempt to be with our, with a lower bidder here, that we basically appealed to Caltrans to the state for the first low bidder?
We, on behalf of Sully Miller, made the attempt to convince Caltrans that they had done an adequate good faith effort.
Okay, and the result?
The result was they did not believe that they had. So we then notified Sully Miller of Caltrans' findings, offered them a reconsideration hearing per federal regulations. We met with Sully Miller to go over their deficiencies in their good faith effort. At that meeting, they addressed a few things. Caltrans had stated that their commitment was significantly less than the goal, that they did not search the California Unified Certification Program to identify DBEs for solicitation, and as a result of that, you also have to outreach or notify those DBEs of your opportunity, and that they did not submit some of the information required by the Exhibit 15H Part C, which is part of their good faith effort documentation. And finally, that Sully Miller rejected a DBE quote that was reasonable in pricing. So we met with Sully Miller, we discussed it. Sully Miller's explanation or clarification was that with the exception of Comet, who is the 3rd low bidder, who not just met but far exceeded the DBE goal, that their DBE commitment was on par with the 2nd low bidder. It was higher, but clearly fell far short. And they also raised the issue that the DBE subcontractor listed by Comet may not be certified to do all of the work that they were listed for. We believed that they did. However, because Sully Miller raised that issue, we did go to Caltrans because their certification was somewhat broad. Their sub-bid was about 5 pages long, containing approximately 100 bid items. Caltrans reviewed and came back to us and said of that approximate 100 bid items, there were 6 that they thought that they did not, that they were not certified to perform. So therefore, we adjusted in terms of their DBE goal commitment and took that out of their sub-bid. That has resulted in a revised DBE commitment for the subcontractor, or for Comet, of 38.38%. So that should be reflected on pages 3 and 8. Additionally, on page 8, there's where it lists Comet's sub-bids, the dollar amount towards the DBE goal should be adjusted from $486,136 to $2,135,017.46. But clearly that still shows that Comet Electric far exceeded the DBE goal.
Commissioner Davis?
I have a clarification. In terms of the adjustment that was made as a result that was raised by Sully Miller, the percentages would be from 42.27% to 38.38%. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms.
Correct. So, that really didn't address Caltrans' issue in terms of their not meeting the goal. In terms of their not adequately searching the CUCP, they believed that they did. They were going to go back and look. They subsequently sent us 2 follow-up emails showing that, one, it was simply a part of their original documentation that indicated that they had queried the CUCP on a certain date at a certain time. However, in the second email, they said that it was glitching and they couldn't actually get a query on that day and time, and instead used a previous query. When we looked at that previous query did not match, nor did they actually outreach to all of those DBEs. So what Caltrans had evaluated and said in terms of their not outreaching to all the DBEs, that's what we found as well. They weren't outreaching to everyone that they said that they were going to.
I have another point. In this contract, is this a federally funded contract or a state?
This is federally funded, which is why Caltrans was involved. Correct. And why they take the point of, if you haven't outreached to everyone available, then you haven't done everything you can to meet that DBE goal.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
So in that respect, they had not met it. And the rest of the items that they addressed, again, it did not help us in a way that we could go to Caltrans and say, yes, we believe that they met the goal. So as a result of their follow-up and the reconsideration hearing, our reconsideration officer, if you will, our DBE liaison for the city, Mr. Reamer, deemed them to have not met the DBE requirements, or the DBE good faith effort. So having done that, we looked at Griffith, the second low bidder. Griffith pledged a DBE commitment of 4.72%, which was also substantially less than the DBE goal. We performed our review. Our review in and of itself, we were not finding them to have done an adequate good faith effort. So we informed them of that, offered them a reconsideration hearing. They came in for the reconsideration hearing, and they basically, as a result of that, said, yes, we could do more and we will do more in the future. Unfortunately, that does not help us with this project. And along those lines, I'm sorry, as a result of that adjusted DBE goal for Comet, there's one other notation that should be changed on page 7, where it talks about indicator 8, indicator H, the comparison of second low to first and third low. There's a notation that the third low bidder met the DBE goal and pledged an amount, and it says 37.55% greater than Griffith's DBE pledged amount. That should now be adjusted to 33.66%. And additionally with Griffith, they had a DBE subbid which they rejected, and what they had written on the subbid and claimed in their good faith effort documentation was that the subbid was too high. However, in our analysis as a whole, it was too high, but had they broken out a portion of that subbid, a portion of that subbid was actually less than the non-DBE that they did list, and had they broken that out and given it to that DBE, they could have met the goal. So that is one more reason why we have to recommend that they did not do everything they could to meet the DBE goal and therefore are non-responsive. And that was the same conclusion to the reconsideration hearing that Mr. Reamer came to. So that's why we are now recommending to Comet Electric with their pledge of 38.38%.
And Ms. McGlinchey, just because this is, as you described, a bit of a different process when we have the federal funding, the work that you do through Caltrans, there is risk involved if we were to try and reach the first low bidder and waive some of these irregularities. There's risk that we would not receive reimbursement, correct?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Rivas.
That was my question in terms of the risk. Thank you, Commissioner, for answering it. My question was in terms of the process, but I think Commissioner James just answered. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry to jump the gun. Commissioner Repenning.
I just wanted to comment. I think this is maybe our third recent example of a situation in which Caltrans is actually pretty aggressive on what they're looking for in terms of outreach. And I just think it's interesting that they are willing to be as aggressive in terms of what they're looking for.
They have become far more aggressive. The requirement is for construction projects, anything over $2 million. If we're looking to award based on good faith effort, it needs to be reviewed by Caltrans prior to an award so that they can weigh in like they have in this situation. And you're right, what has been communicated to me from Caltrans is they set that threshold because the bigger the project, the higher their expectation is of the prime contractors to make real efforts to achieve the goal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Repenning. Commissioner Davis.
I wanted to just say from this process, I think it's been certainly a learning experience in terms of compliance as far as trying to reach business inclusion. And I think it's to an advantage to have as many individuals in a consensual decision-making process. The decision between both the Caltrans agency as well as our own contract administration. And I think it's hopeful that even Griffin stated that they could do more. as a result of this meticulous process. They have come to understand, get more knowledge, that there's a need for more skill in terms of competing for these contracts, and they have seen the potential to do more. For me, that is encouraging. And my hope is that as a result of what we do here, we can use that same model, even though we don't have the support of Caltrans, in our locally funded projects as well. So I thank you for describing to us the process here. And again, I'm hopeful that even those prime contractors who did not win the contract, who have had some challenges, have learned from this experience, because I certainly have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Anything further? Is there a motion on agenda item number 6 by Commissioner Davis, seconded by Commissioner Jacinto, based on the Bureau of Contract Administration's recommendation? Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 6. Any issue sending 6 forthwith? We will send number 6 forthwith. Yes, Mr. Rios?
Just one comment. I just wanted to express our gratitude to both Bureau of Engineering and Contract Administration, because we're working under some very rigid deadlines for this grant. These grants are becoming more and more. They want to see these projects in the ground, so they've put in some very, very arduous deadlines. So I just wanted to commend and thank Contract Administration and Bureau of Engineering for working with us to move this project forward.
Great, thank you, sir. And I would echo that. Ms. McGlinchey, please pass on to your team as well as the Bureau of Engineering. As you could just hear, on the record reflects the amount of work and the complexity that can take place regarding these grant-funded, federally funded projects that are so important to the community. And we really thank you for the comprehensive work. So with that, the item will carry, and we'll send it forthwith. Thank you. Agenda item number 7, and I'm just about to put my exhibits for number 7 in the wrong stack. Agenda item number 7, Bureau of Engineering and Bureau of Sanitation, Council District 14, construction budget revision and construction orders revision on the emergency sewer repairs on the North Outfall Sewer, Jesse Street, and Mission Road project. First, authorize a revised construction budget of $19,505,000 for the project. And second, authorize the city engineer to issue revised construction orders to Clark for the project. And Rafael Solorzano will summarize what is happening here. And Mr. Campos, just for the record, I've got some photos that I will hand off to my colleagues that we will then add to the record that came from the Bureau. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning. My name is Rafael Solorzano from Wastewater Command Construction. I'm here to request to revise the construction budget and authority for the emergency sewer at Jesse Street and Mission. This project began in July 2016. On July 18th, the NOS, the 60-inch semi-elliptical sewer collapsed, causing a major sewer spill. The contractor, Tomovich and Associate, was on site and was directed by the engineer to mitigate the sewer spill. 2 wet wells with pumps were constructed. The sinkholes were backfilled and to stabilize the emergency. This project is actually broken into 2 phases. Phase 1 was expeditiously designed and bidded out to 3 on-call contractors, and Clark Contracting was the lowest responsible bidder. Phase 1 is comprised of operating and maintaining the sewer bypass on a 24-hour basis, 24-hour site security, removing and replacing 252 feet of the 60-inch semi-elliptical pipe with 63-inch circular pipe. Also is to assess the remaining 500 feet of pipe. The NOS actually traveled through private property underneath a commercial building. Unfortunately, we discovered additional voids, sinkholes, and the pipe was not feasible to be rehabilitated. Therefore, Phase 2 was designed accordingly. And Phase 2 is comprised of backfilling and abandoning the 500 feet of pipe of the NOS, removing an additional 114 feet of the NOS and replacing it with 63-inch pipe, as well as to construct 410 feet of new sewer alignment along Mission Road through private property, but this time away from the building and tying into our ATF, our air treatment facility at Jesse and Mission. Phase 2 will also maintain the bypass operation, which is going 24 hours a day, as well as site security. And we will actually, on phase 2, remove the bypass, restore the streets, and also restore any private property damage. This project is scheduled for 24 weeks. We anticipate to be completed by August of 2017. We requested Clark Contracting to provide us a cost proposal for phase 2. Their price came in at $10,114,493. After reviewing it by engineering, it was determined to be reasonable. Therefore, I am requesting a construction budget of $11 million with $885,000 contingency, bringing the total construction budget for phase 1 and 2 to $19,505,000. Is there any questions that I may address?
Yes, Raphael, just confirming that there will not be a phase 3.
No, no more phases, no.
All right, so this project we're very familiar with. It's been before us a number of times. I know at least Commissioner Penning and I were present that day and during those times. I think the board report reflects it, but I would like the oral report to reflect it. Or at least I put an exclamation point on it to the extent you may have already mentioned it. The Bureau is satisfied with the presentation, the bid in essence from Clark for the phase 2 work, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Anything else on agenda item number 7, Commissioner Jacinto?
Thank you, President James. Raphael, thank you for the report. This is a big ticket item.
Yes, it is.
63-inch north outfall sewer is big as they come, pretty much.
Yes, it's been a very complicated job. It's a very deep sewer too. It's a very large pipe. If you look at the area that we're working at, phase 2, we're impacting 2 businesses, and these businesses actually have large semi-trucks that are going in and out. So phase 2 had to take this into consideration, as well as we're working in conjunction with the 6th Street Viaduct contractor. In phase 1, they were demoing the bridge, and in phase 2, they're actually constructing the bridge. So it's been very challenging.
Yeah. So I'm out there a couple of times and just seeing the staging, the bypass at 24/7. These are big operations that we need to do to take care of the wastewater system of our city. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is that a motion, Commissioner Jacinto? I'll second it, along with Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 7. Any issue sending 7 forthwith? We will send number 7 forthwith. Mr. Green, I think you are here on number 9 now. Authority for expenditure, approve and execute authority for expenditure in the amount of $24,750 to provide the Japanese Garden Mayor's Citizens Advisory Committee located at Donald C. Tillman Water Reclamation Plant in the City of Los Angeles. A strategic plan and blueprint for sustainability agreement is from April 26, 2017 to October 25, 2017. Authorize myself, and I'm going to add this, or 2 board members, to execute letter of agreement between Kumamoto Associates and the City of Los Angeles. Mr. Green.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners, Representatives. I'm happy to be the last item. It was a long agenda. I want to make a correction on item 2 underneath number 9. Says the contour will be between leverage information systems is really not. It's between Kumamoto and Associates on number 2. So I made that correction for the record.
Yeah, we made that, and at least in the document I have, it's been corrected. But go ahead.
Thank you. Again, with the working with the board member, Commissioner Jacinto and Commissioner Rivas, reviewed that we know we have a organizational policy and bylaws, but in the 2017 setting, was asked, do we have a strategic plan? The answer is no. So it was thought that this is the best time to come up with a strategic plan for the future. A lot of the players in the future will be gone. I'm still around at this time, so it's time to have a strategic plan for the future of the garden itself and how it interacts with the City of Los Angeles. And that's basically the thrust for it, and thanks to Commissioner Jacinto and Commissioner Reese for kind of like pushing me forward to do this.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Commissioner Penning.
Was there a competitive process in selecting this vendor, or how did we?
It's based on our $25,000. It's a WBE person, MBE also. We reached out to just them and as a source for doing this strategic plan because it was a short time frame and under $25,000. I discussed this with Ted Jordan and he signed off on it. He's not here today. And
he's actually over there.
Hi,
Ted.
So that's what we did.
Okay.
I would add to that also, Gene, if you don't mind. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. The charter does allow any contract that's under 25,000 or 90 days or less for the services does not require a competitive selection process. So there is an exemption under Charter Section 371 through 373-ish.
Thank you. Mr. Green, so can you just summarize the selection process that the Japanese Garden made? Is this an entity that the Japanese Garden has worked with before? Was there familiarity?
No, Commissioner Jacinto, I believe, has worked with them in the past. That's why the name came up. So this is why he says this is a nice firm. They're local. They've done different things throughout organizations. They did a big thing for water and power. I met with both of them. It's a husband and wife, and they worked with water and power on projects too, but not, I think, on our side itself. So we think I met with them over coffee, went over what we were trying to do, and they think we're going to come out with a very good result.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Commissioner Jacinto.
Thank you. I just wanted to recognize the participation and leadership of Commissioner Rivas and Gene and you and the Citizens Advisory Committee in understanding that a strategic plan would be good to move the garden forward, and with the ultimate goal of trying to raise its standing from number 10 to maybe higher up in terms of Japanese gardens, and that can be helped with a strategic plan. And so went out and tried to search for an appropriate consulting firm that would be able to have a sort of insider-outsider knowledge of both the community, of the scope of work, and really a strategic kind of framework for sustainability and how the Japanese garden, an aesthetic garden, has a role in terms of the development of a water reclamation plant. So I think that their facilitation is appropriate, and they have ties to the local community as well. So in my mind, it was a good fit.
Yeah, I'd like to also state that our future, we have now 42,000 visitors a year. I have the same 4 staff I had 15 years ago. If we go to a strategic plan to identify what we need to do to take care of our mass increase in basically visitors and also contracts. We do filming out there. So this is a strategic plan. It will be real nice to probably come back to the board and say, hey, we might need this position, might need this one, because it's really an expanding program. It's not a decreasing program. On Sunday, we had 450 people last Sunday. It's a lot for us. We're 2 security guards and Charlie running around. So this is going to be a great asset to move forward and come back with some, honest, basically decisions on what you as a board and the city want to do in the future of the garden.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Rivas.
Thank you, Gene, for presenting this to us and for your work. I know you care a lot about the garden, and so do we, but I think this is also an opportunity, as we've discussed, to work with sanitation and the water reclamation team there to integrate that into the garden's programs, right? And also to bring the cultural aspect, and also involve the Japanese American community that's very active in the Valley and in other parts of Los Angeles. So I'm very excited to do both of those things, to make this, to strengthen the programs of the garden, potentially increase them, and also identify what are the gaps, what do we need to move forward, to make all of that work together. So thank you for your leadership, and I look forward to working on this project.
Yes, it's going to be an interesting process. It's less than 6 months. It's going to be really a learning experience for all of us involved. I'm including the board. I'm sure they're going to interview the board members here too, and sanitation advisory group. So whatever it is, they're going to do an in-depth interview and meeting to get everybody's input, then sit down with our meetings jointly as they start developing where they think we should go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rivas. Anything further? Thank you, Mr. Green. Is there a motion on agenda item number 9? Commissioner Jacinto, seconded by Commissioner Rivas. Any objection? With that objection, we will adopt agenda item number 9. Any issue sending number 9 forthwith? We will send number 9 forthwith. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Agenda item number 10. Mr. Campos, have we cleared everything other than oral reports?
No, item number 1 is
Withdrawn, right?
Is being requested to be withdrawn. Yes, correct.
I thought I said that twice. I didn't? Did I miss that one?
I may have missed it myself, but just for the record, item number 1 has been withdrawn.
So 1 is withdrawn. We'll confirm that 1 is withdrawn. Agenda item number 10. Let's see. Agenda item number 10. Stormwater Capture Quarterly Report, Bureau of Sanitation. Morning,
Good morning,
sir.
Board. How are you doing? Thank you so much. Majid Sadeghi with LA Sanitation Watershed Protection Division. I guess everybody has the handout. I'll be talking about the stormwater capture utilizing green stormwater infrastructure in City of Los Angeles. As everybody knows, there are three sections here: the institutional, the LID, the distributed, which is the Green Street, and regional, the wetlands. So I'll just talk about some of the projects that we are working on right now. If you have the handouts. The Lower Canyon Boulevard Green Street, which is almost 95% complete. This picture is actually from yesterday, so they brought all the plants. They're going to be planting all the sections, which are the rain gardens there. So they're going to be finishing that project very soon. The University Rain Garden project that we had at University Park neighborhood, we're about 97% done. We've finished all the construction. They're just about to plant the plants right now. We've add all the mulch in there. We put 35 rain gardens in that area. The Penmar Water Quality Improvement Project Phase 2, that's for the reuse for the stormwater. It's about 40% complete for this project. The Temescal Canyon Park Stormwater Phase 2, that's about 50% complete for the reuse component of that section. The Albion Riverside Greenway Park, that's going to have the groundbreaking next Saturday, May 6th. The Argo Drain Subbasement, there's going to be, this plans were just signed, which is 100% plans completed. The city attorney signed that. City engineer, sorry. The Roy Shaw Wetlands, that's in summer of 2017. There's going to be 90% design. We're working with LA County on that. Our two great streets, the Lancashire Boulevard from Chandler to Victory, we are in the pre-design right now, and the project is supposed to be completed in December 2018. And also our other great street, the Van Nuys Boulevard from Lower Canyon to San Fernando Road, that's in pre-design. Again, the same thing is going to be finished December 2018. Just some other projects about a low impact development, LID. We have a couple of all these different components of the stormwater capture that we are doing. This map is very interesting. If you guys look at almost the last which actually shows that, of course, this year we had a very good rainfall, so you could see how much we captured on a monthly basis compared to the amount of rainfall we had per month. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions for you.
Well, thank you, sir. We love seeing these.
Exactly.
The reports and seeing the projects and seeing the progress and the before and afters and the data, the information's very helpful. It's great for us. We're out in the community all the time. We get asked about them. We get a chance to talk about them, and these reports are very helpful to kind of put it all in context. So, thanks again.
Thank you,
Commissioner Repenning.
On a few of the projects, Laurel Canyon and University Park will be having ribbon cutting soon, I imagine.
Yes, those we're going to be having ribbon cutting. And then we're actually working for University Rain Garden at the University Park. We're going to try to hopefully have it in June. We'll definitely try to coordinate with you. We're working with PAO's office for the university. And also the Laurel Canyon too. We're going to have the ribbon cutting for ceremony for those two projects.
And then we're waiting to approve your recommendations for the tosses for the two Great Street projects. They have not come to us yet, I don't think.
I think they've been approved already. I think we've already selected. One is for the two tosses for the Great Streets. We already selected Corolla and Geocentric to work on those two projects.
I would check on that. I don't remember it being approved. I know that.
Okay,
I know that there's likely a recommendation, so I just want to make sure that we've had a chance to approve that before.
Oh, okay. I thought it was away, but I'll get back on you on that.
Okay, thank you. Very exciting, and this winter was great. We actually got to see how a lot of the projects are working finally after a few very dry years.
Yeah, exactly. After so many years of 5 years of drought, and all of a sudden we get this huge rain event, and they work, especially like the Broadway project. We captured so much rainwater, almost 31 acre feet. till, I mean, I think we captured the full amount of water we were supposed to capture for that event, and it worked really well. So all these projects is coming, and they're showing they're capturing all the storm water.
Thank you. I appreciate your work on all of this, Majid.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. The oral report will be received.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And it was good seeing you, President James, at our LA Sanitation Earth Day last week.
Oh, it was a great event, yes. And Commissioner Davis was there with me, and
Yes, Vice
Commissioner Penning and I were working on City Earth Day events much of the day. It was all well done. Thank you all for your participation and your organization and planning around it.
Thank you so much.
The community
President.
enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, President. Thank you.
The oral report will be received on number 10. Agenda item number 11, quarterly status of personal services contracts. Mr. Ohanian, I see you sitting right here very patiently for us this morning. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Good morning, Eddie Ohanian from Bureau of Engineering. I'm here to provide a quarterly report on the status of personal services contracts managed by the Bureau of Engineering for the period of January 1st, 2017 until March 31st of 2017. There are a total of 131 contracts active as of now, and they were invoiced by $15,527,683 during the reporting period. There are no contracts executed and no contracts archived during this period. Total of 22 contracts that will be expiring during next 120 days. There are 16 contracts provided by, 16 contracts approved by the board for amendments, of which 5 still are under reviews and not executed yet. There are a total of 11 task orders for the amount of $3,376,635 were awarded during the reporting period. 8 were less than $100,000, and 3 were over $100,000. And again, I'm going fast. I'm doing the best I can. Just another minute. 95 of 131 contracts are MBE, WBE outreach contracts, of which $10,644,974 were invoiced during the period. 9.3% of 12% MBE pledged were achieved, and the WBE of 2.7% exceeded the pledged amount of 2%. 22 of 131 contracts are business inclusion program contracts, to which $1,593,104 were invoiced during the period. 19% MBE exceeded the 18% pledged, 5.6% WBE exceeded the 4% pledged, and 8.8% EBE exceeded the 8% pledged. However, 18% SBE was less than 25% pledged for this contract, and 1.5% DVBE was also less than 3%. 14 of 131 contracts are disadvantaged business outreach program contract, of which $3,289,605 were invoiced during the period. And for this program, 24.3% DBE was significantly more than pledged of 6%. That is my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ohanian, Commissioner Davis?
Mr. Ohanian, do you have a copy of your of your report, of the data that you just discussed? You have a copy of it?
Yes, I think we have distributed a copy of the report already, but I'll be glad to send you another copy.
Maybe I didn't. I'll get with Dr. Campos to make sure that I have a copy of it.
Should be in your binder.
Okay, I'll find it. But thank you for your report. It's it's very enlightening in terms of what we've been able to accomplish, and I appreciate you telling us about our challenges moving forward, and I think it's a great report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Ohanian? Thank you, sir. We'll see you next quarter.
Thank you.
And the benchmarking data to be able to compare back and forth with prior quarters is always helpful. Thank you. Margaret Lang? Did I get close on your last name?
Liang?
Liang. Yes. It's exactly what I said.
Good morning, Commissioners and Executive Staff. My name is Margaret Liang, and I am with the Office of Wage Standards, Bureau of Contract Administration. On May 6, 2016, your board adopted and executed contracts with 12 consultants that were placed on our pre-qualified on-call list for various wage standards enforcements and implementation projects. Out of those 12, 0 contracts will be expiring within the next 9 months. During this reporting period, which covers the third quarter of this fiscal year, the total paid invoice amount was $39,300. The total notice to proceed amount was for $60,008.38. Our CBOs reached 9,170 employees. Also, during the same reporting period, we issued 3 new task order solicitations. The first task order solicitation, OWS 17-004, consists of one-on-one counseling and direct outreach to employees. The second task order solicitation, OWS 17-006, consists of counseling and referral services to assist workers in filing wage theft and paid sick leave violation claims. Lastly, the third task order solicitation, OWS 17-007, consists of educational outreach to Los Angeles' business community/employers. Of the 3 task order solicitation orders that were issued, we have awarded to TOS OWS 17-004 and TOS OWS 17-006. This concludes my presentation, and we will be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Liang? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend. You too. Thank you. Dr. Campos, have we cleared the...
Yes, you have.
Okay, with the exception of an adjourning motion that I have.
I wanted to say something about our event in South LA this week.
Commissioner, we have sanitation.
Oh, we have okay. Bureau of Sanitation. I'm sorry, I did not get a notification that you were here. Thank you.
I apologize
Morning.
for that.
You almost forgot me. I'm dead last.
I tell you what, these guys, they get a doctorate and then it's one thing after another. Not a mistake for 2.5 years, and then a doctorate comes in, and what do we have, a couple today?
We typically like our bureaus to check in with us before the meeting, so.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
Well, maybe
sorry.
that's,
I'm a sub.
maybe that's
I'm
not
subbing.
entirely on you, sir. Go ahead, ma'am.
Sorry about that. I'm Felicia Ansley, filling in for Sherry from the Bureau of Sanitation, presenting the quarterly report. I'm going to try to make this very brief for you. The total amount billed since last quarter was $42,878,689, 42.8. And MBE, WBE outreach program contracts, the sub-participation was $24.5 million. The business inclusion program contracts were $18.2 million. The breakdown for that is a total of $4.1 million for MBE, WBE outreach program contracts. And I'm not sure if you want me to go into the detail of that or just stick to the totals. Okay. The business inclusion program contracts, the total amount was $6.8 million. Out of the 50 solid waste biosolids contracts that we have, there's one that is expiring within the next 9 months. That is expiring on November 1st for Clean Harbors. That is going to be renewed. We're exercising the 3-year renewal, and that draft board report is being finalized by the project manager. There are no stormwater management contracts expiring. Wastewater contracts, there are 2. They're both going to be renewed. The first one is Gatekeeper, and that is going to be amended to add 3 years and increase the cost ceiling. That contract is also being finalized by the project manager. The second one is Conejo Crest for the Japanese garden. They are exercising a 1-year renewal option and then also amending the contract to add an additional term and cost ceiling in order to allow time to prepare and release a solicitation for landscape services not only for the Japanese garden but all of LA Sand facilities as well. So that renewal option board report is being reviewed by our exec right now, and that should be scheduled for board fairly soon. Finally, as far as deviation concerns, we have 11 contracts. that have MBE, WBE, SE, and DVBE concerns. That's down 2 from the last quarterly report that was presented.
That's good, right direction.
It's down. In a nutshell, the majority of the reasons for the deviations are either that the subs are going to be used later on in the project and it's early,
Which is okay.
or LA San revised the scope of services, and so those tasks are no longer in the mix. City staff performed the portion of the work that the subs were going to do, or a lot of them are that the contractor either hasn't invoiced LA San or LA San staff hasn't gotten to putting them into the system, so they'll probably turn up in the next report. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, ma'am. Very helpful. Thank you. And
Thank
we
you.
appreciate the right direction. So, any other bureaus for today on this item? None. So the oral reports will be received. Commissioner Davis, you have an announcement before my adjourning motion.
I just wanted to briefly state in terms of history and current events all over the media, they are talking about the 1992 Los Angeles insurrection. And this Saturday, Mayor Eric Garcetti, former mayors Antonio Villaraigosa and Dick Reardon, each will talk about that point in Los Angeles' history of 1992. And of course, I'm sure many of us in the room remember 1992 and what was happening. I was chief of staff to the congressional office in South Los Angeles for Congresswoman Waters during that period of time in which that happened for our city. So the discussion between our leaders, our current leader, Mayor Garcetti, and our past leaders about how we have continued to work to bring our various communities together will be the subject of their conversation. But I wanted to, as a Public Works Commissioner, to say that one of the things that has not really been highlighted is that after every kind of experience like that, it is the men and women of Public Works that has to piece the city back together, and they do. And so we have a great deal of gratitude to those men and women that we work with on an everyday basis, from sanitation to street services to street lighting. And we know that our corporate Los Angeles community put together Rebuild LA as well to talk about equity. And so what we talk about in terms of just recently the reports that we received where people are talking about business inclusion, all those issues come together as we make Los Angeles a greater and a better place. And again, I can appreciate Mayor Eric Garcetti's back to basic principles because they reflect what we value in Los Angeles as well. So I wanted to just say that as the media talks about that, that our mayor and our past leaders are talking about that, and we should be proud of what we do in this city to keep it together and what we do in public service to help rebuild LA as well. So thank you, President, for giving me an opportunity to give these remarks.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Very important and very timely, and a nice message regarding the work of our Department of Public Works during that time. I have an adjourning motion that relates a little bit back to that time as well, maybe a few years before, specifically perhaps a decade before, but certainly the period of time in the 90s was critical in the AIDS epidemic. I would like to adjourn this morning's meeting in honor of Matt Redman. Matt Redman, in his recent passing, leaves only one of the original founders of AIDS Project Los Angeles still alive today. Just 2 years ago, in another couple of months, it'll be exactly 2 years ago, Mayor Garcetti honored Matt as one of the city's pioneering leaders in the LGBTQ community. I've known Matt over 20 years. I served on the board of AIDS Project Los Angeles with him for many years. And Matt was, as one of the co-founders of APLA, was one of the early warriors in the AIDS epidemic when every community, even members of the gay community, were turning their backs on people that were infected with HIV and AIDS. AIDS took Matt. And Matt wanted people to know that. But he was a survivor of the plague. He died at 67 years old, and he thinks that he was infected in 1979, before they even knew what AIDS was. And living through that epidemic, as I did, and seeing so many people in our community that died such horrible deaths, many of them very alone, even from their families. Losing Matt brings back a lot of memories, and I think that people like Matt Redmond's I think people like Matt Redmond's memory people need to know about him. I think the best way to do this is, there was a story in our LGBT press by Karen Oakham, and I do want to make this very, very brief, because it was such a painful time those years. The mysterious disease appeared in Los Angeles before the first Centers for Disease Control and Morbidity and Mortality on June 5th, 1981. By LA-based Dr. Michael Gottlieb and Dr. Joel Weissman, I knew both of them, on 5 gay patients. In 1979, in the era of mega discos, like Probe and Studio One, places that I went when I was young, a young, thin, sick, and penniless gay man covered in purple lesions was among the 70 men who stood in line each night at the LA Gay Community Services Center's STD clinic to be treated for sexually transmitted diseases. Healthcare worker Hugh Rice said later that he was struck by the man's appearance but thought that the purple lesions were some strange dermatological problem. He learned 6 weeks later that the young man had died in isolation at LA County Hospital. Only after the federal government announced the new fatal disease called gay-related immunodeficiency disease did Hugh Rice himself realize that the young man had AIDS, a disease that would eventually take Hugh Rice as well. Matt said that his friends and he were in New York in 1981 when they first heard about it. And what they did when they came back to Los Angeles, they lived in Los Angeles, they came back here and literally set up a hotline in a broom closet at AIDS Project Los Angeles. The closet wasn't much bigger than kind of the area where we sat here, where there was a desk and a one-page script. And all they wanted to do was provide, as they did, provide a place for people that knew nothing to just call and get information. Where can they go for any kind of medicine? What's happening to me? What's happening to my son? What's happening to my daughter, my brother, my sister? And then they had a fundraiser. It was a Christmas benefit that year in 1981 that raised $7,000 in seed money to create what became AIDS Project Los Angeles. By the time I joined the board in 1993, so it's 12 years later, but still in the middle of the AIDS epidemic, to the extent that the deaths were so huge, APLA had grown to a $20 million a year organization. Matt was one of the founding members. He was one of the members of the board of directors. And most importantly about him, he was fearless in the fight when everyone seemed to be turning their backs on a community that was being devastated by this disease. I would only mention one thing that I felt so fortunate to have experienced myself, and I was totally an eavesdropper in this moment. It was the day 2 years ago that the city had honored Matt, and I was there, and Jeff Genest, who was the board chair immediately before I became the board chair of APLA, was there as well. And Jeff, I remember in 1995, Jeff Genest was in hospice care. I went to see him for what I thought was the last time. And then in 1990, well, it was 1996, then the protease inhibitors were introduced. Jeff was on a trial for protease inhibitors. He's alive today. As a matter of fact, Jeff Janess went back to work. And part of what we did at APLA was, instead of helping families with their family members to die, we helped the families with their family members to live and to begin their careers again, because protease inhibitors changed the world in the AIDS epidemic. Jeff was there that day, and we were in, those of you will know, the press room that the city council uses. After the presentation, we were all in the press room, and I was kind of standing off, and Jeff Janess whispered into Matt Redmond's ear, "We're still here. Can you believe we're still here?" And Matt's not anymore. But I'm so glad that those guys continued to survive and live as long as they did, so that so many guys like me that were just lucky, we were just lucky, were able to continue and live to a point in our lives where we're now having an openly gay community that is getting old, that are being senior citizens, because the community before us, they were generally in the closet two generations before us. So we didn't see them grow old publicly. The community immediately before my generation, or the generation immediately before mine, were ravaged by AIDS, and many of them never got old. They died in their 20s and 30s. So my generation is the first generation to be able to grow old in a post-AIDS era, and it's because of guys like Matt Redmond that happened. So I adjourn in his honor, and I thank you for your indulgence.